We were learning about Megillas Tainus yesterday. We're today on DAF Yud Tes Amud Aleph. Megillas Tainus is a scroll that indicates all of those days that were instituted during the period of BAYT of the Second Temple, which are celebratory days, and therefore a person is not supposed to fast. The Gemara had questioned as to whether those celebratory days are still extant even after the Churban HaBayis. The Gemara has suggested that that's not the case, that once the temple was destroyed, those days reverted back to regular days, in which case it is permitted to fast. The Gemara then questions that by bringing, we saw this yesterday on Yud Ches Amud Beis, there was something stated in a Brisa about the 3rd of Tishrei as being instituted as a celebratory day, very much akin to all of those days in Megillas Tainus, because of something joyous that happened on that day, that the rabbis were able to rescind a decree by the Chashmonaim to include Hashem's name in every contract. And because the rabbis felt that that would result in a desecration of Hashem's name, they were able to rescind that edict, and as a result it became a celebratory day. So the Gemara's question is, if this was after the destruction of the temple, why are they adding celebratory days to a system which no longer applies? There are no longer celebratory days. So the Gemara's response was that this was before the Churban. The next question that we asked yesterday, now going to the top of Yud Tes Amud Aleph, if this is before the Churban, then the 3rd of Tishrei already is a celebratory day, because all the fast days that we've listed previously, including Tzom Gedalia, had a celebratory status during the times when the Second Temple was standing. So why was it necessary? So the Gemara answered. So the Gemara answered because we wanted to not only include it as a celebratory day because of the day of Gedalia, but also to tell you that it's a rabbinic celebratory day, so that you'll know not to fast the day before and the day after, because we had learned that for all the celebratory days of Megillas Tainus, the rabbis also said not to fast the day before and the day after. So the Gemara says, well, why would you need to know that the day before you don't fast, if after all the day before is the day after Rosh HaShana? So that's a celebratory day in and of itself, because it's the day after a celebratory day of the Torah. So the Gemara answers that the rule that you don't fast the day before and the day after a celebratory day only applies to rabbinic celebratory days, not to Torah celebratory days, because Torah celebratory days do not need chizuk, they don't need strengthening, and as a result there's no rule that you're not allowed to fast the day after Rosh HaShana. If we did not institute this celebratory day of the 3rd of Tishrei for rabbinic reasons, then I would be permitted to fast on the 2nd of Tishrei. So that's where we're up to now. So the Gemara now says, "V'tepukle dahavale." We're about 15 lines, 12 to 15 lines down. V'tepukle dahavale yom shelifnei yom shenera go Gedalia ben Achikam. But the 2nd of Tishrei, you still have the before the rabbis instituted this celebratory day for the purposes of the averting of the Hasmonean decree. It was still a celebratory day because of the day of Gedalia, and the day of Gedalia is a rabbinic holiday. It's not from the Chumash, and so therefore it should be forbidden to fast the day before on the 2nd of Tishrei. For that reason, you don't need an additional reason for the Hasmonean issue. So Amar Rav Ashi Gedalia ben Achikam divrei Kabbalah hu v'divrei Kabbalah k'divrei Torah damu. So the Gemara answers because the fast of Gedalia, which became a celebratory day of Gedalia during the Second Temple period, is recorded in Nach. And because it's recorded in Nach, it has the semi-status of being a biblical holiday. And as such, the rabbis did not deem it necessary to create chizuk for it, to forbid fasting the day before and the day after. So if it was only because of the day of Gedalia, I would not know that it's forbidden to fast on the 2nd of Tishrei. It's only because they instituted this rabbinic celebration of the averting of the Hasmonean decree that we know that it's now forbidden not only to fast on the 3rd of Tishrei, but also the day before and the day after as well. The Gemara's next question.
This is assuming Rosh HaShana is only one day.
Right. It's assuming Rosh HaShana is only one day. For most years, it's only one day when we go according to the regular calendar, to the Kiddush al Pi HaRe'iyah. right? Because biblically that's the case. Biblically, Rosh Hashanah is only one day. So Masiv Rav Tuvi Bar Masna. So we're now challenging our entire premise. Remember, our premise is that after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, all of the celebratory days listed in Megillas Tainis no longer apply. So Masiv Rav Tuvi Bar Masna Be'esrim B'Tamanya Bey Asas Besurta Tafta Li-Yehudoi Delo Ye'idun Me'oraisa. That on the 28th of Adar, the Jewish people were given good tidings that they would not have to separate from their Torah. Shegazra Hamalchus Gezerah Shelo Yasku B'Torah. Originally, the Roman government had decreed that the Jewish people could no longer study Torah, v'shel yamulu es b'neim v'sheichalalu Shabbosos, and that they could not circumcise their children, and that they had to desecrate Shabbos. Ma asa Yehuda ben Shamua v'chaverav. What did Yehuda ben Shamua and his colleagues do? Halchu v'natlu eitzam imatrunisa echa shekol gedolei Romi mitzuyin etzla. They went to take advice from a matron of Rome that was very chummy. She was an aristocratic woman, and she was very chummy with a lot of the Roman authorities. And they asked her, what should we do to avert this terrible decree? Amr lahem bo'u ve'hafginu balayla. So she said, go tonight and make a hafgana. Now the word hafgana today, you would think about, people shouting with placards and things like that. That's not what the type of hafgana that she was advocating. She was advocating a hafgana that would evoke mercy, cry, and appeal to the compassionate side of the Romans through this hafgana, not in protest, but rather as a petition to the Romans. And v'hivkinu balayla, and so that's what they did. Amru ishamayim lo acheichem anachnu v'lo b'nei av echad anachnu v'lo b'nei em echas anachnu. So they said, by heaven we declare, are we not Romans? Are we not your brethren? Are we not of the same father? And are we not of the same mother? Because they're appealing to the Esav side. Look, we're brothers. We're Yaakov. You guys are Esav. We have the same father. We have the same mother. Why are we so different from any other nation that you're heaping upon us these terrible decrees? It's almost like history hasn't moved an inch, right? These things are still going on, unfortunately, today. Why are you singling us out? What did we do that was so terrible? Anyway, ubitlum. So therefore the Romans had compassion and they rescinded the decree. Va'osa hayom asa'uhu yom tov. And that day, this 28th of Adar, when they rescinded the decree, they made that into a celebratory day. So the Gemara's question now is as follows: V'isal kadaitach batla megillas tainis kamaisa batul achranaisa mosifin. So if the whole concept of adding celebratory days was annulled after the Churban, why then this story apparently takes place after the Churban? If the original celebratory days were abolished, why would they add new celebratory days if it's after the Churban? So the Gemara says, ve-chatima hachanami bisman shebeis hamikdash kayam. Maybe you'll give me the same answer you gave me before when we asked from about the 3rd of Tishrei, and you said, oh no, that was during the times of the Beis HaMikdash. That's not possible because Vaha Yehuda ben Shamua Talmido shel Reb Meir, because Yehuda ben Shamua was a student of Reb Meir, and Reb Meir Bosar Hachihava, and Reb Meir clearly was many generations after the Churban. Let's think about it for a second. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, it was his generation that experienced Churban Habayis. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's Talmidim were Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. Their student was Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva's student was Rabbi Meir. So it's 4 generations after the Churban. So, and Yehuda ben Shamua is a student of Rabbi Meir. And how do I know this? Because how do I know that Yehuda ben Shamua is a student of Rabbi Meir? Because it says in the Mishnah, Klei Zechuchis shenikvu vehetif l'sochan Ever Amar Reb Shimon Gamliel Yehuda ben Shamua mitame mishum Reb Meir. That here's the following case: you have a glass utensil that has a hole in it, and you fill that hole with lead, which is a form of metal. So Yehuda ben Shamua says that it's tamei in the name of Reb Meir. The Chachamim mitar and the Chachamim say it's tohar. Now Rashi gives us 2 explanations as to what this case is talking about. One, the first shot in Rashi is that I have a kli, a glass bowl, let's say, that's already tamei, and I want to alleviate it of its tumah without taking it to a mikvah. So one of the options that I have is by puncturing a hole in it to make it ois kli. It's not a kli anymore. It's not usable anymore. And then I patch it with a piece of molten lead. I melt the lead onto it and make it a kli again, reconstitute it. Normally, with metal utensils, the rabbis decreed that in such a situation, even though you made it ois kli in the middle, when you reconstitute it, it goes back to its original state of tumah. So with glass, is that the halacha? No. However, since the patch that you've added is made out of metal, according to Yehuda ben Shammua, hakol holech achar ha-maimid, that you go according to the thing that makes it back into a kli, and since the thing that makes it back into a kli is a piece of metal, so you view this as a metal kli, and therefore just like rabbinically, this kli would be tamei if it was made out of metal, so too this glass kli, which is patched by metal, also goes back to its original state of tumah. And the Chachamim disagree, and they say no, at the end of the day, it's still a kli zuchuchis, it's still glass, it's not metal, and therefore it does not go back to its original state of tumah. That's the first way that Rashi learns this machlokes. The second way that Rashi learns this machlokes is that it's not that the Chachamim hold that it's not tamei, subject to tumah at all. The machlokes is, if you have a glass utensil that's perfectly tahor, and there's a hole in it and it's sealed by a metal patch, a lead patch, the question is, will that kli become subject to tumah midioraisa or only midorabbanan? Only a metal kli is subject to tumah midioraisa, but a glass kli, which is not addressed by the Torah, is not subject to tumah midioraisa. It's only subject to tumah midorabbanan. And that's the machlokas between Yehuda ben Shammua and the Chachamim. Is it judged as a metal kli or is it judged as a glass kli? As far as tumah midioraisa versus tumah midorabbanan. But in any event, what do you see from here? What was the purpose of bringing this discussion? The purpose was to demonstrate that Yehuda ben Shammua is living after the Churban, and yet you see that a celebratory day was introduced during his lifetime. So how do you reconcile that? So the Gemara says Tanoihi. The truth is, it's a machlokas Tanoim. One group of Tanoim hold that after the Churban there were no longer any rabbinically introduced celebratory days, and another Tana holds that there were. And this Braisa about Yehuda ben Shammua obviously holds the other way. The Tanya, as the Braisa says, Hayomim ha'elu ha'kesuvim b'begilas tainis, bein bizman shebeis ha'mikdash kayim, bein bizman shein beis ha'mikdash kayim, asur in divrei Reb Meir. And Reb Meir is the one who says that they apply both before and after the Churban, these celebratory days of Megillas Tainis. And therefore, this Braisa that talks about Yehuda ben Shammua would go like Rebbe Meir. But Rabbi Yossi Omer, Bisman shebeis hamikdash kayim asurin, mipnei shesimcha hi lahem. Ein beis hamikdash kayim mutar mipnei she'evel hu lahem. And the Rabbi Yossi, who is like what we've been going along all along, is of the opinion that no, once the temple was destroyed, there's no reason for the rabbis to introduce any more celebratory days. All of the celebratory days which represented the ascendancy of the Jewish people during the Second Temple period are moot, because we're now in the dumps, right? Because we don't have a Beis HaMikdash anymore. So all of those celebratory days are out the window, and that's really what we're suggesting now. V'hilchasa, and what's the final halacha? Batlu. V'hilchasa lo batlu. One psak halacha that was brought in the Beis Medrash is that the days of Megillas Tainis were nullified, and the other one is that they were not nullified. So kasha hilchasa hilchasa. How are you going to reconcile these two piskei halacha? Lo kasha kan b'Chanukah uPurim kan b'Sha'ar Yomei. So the answer is that the only two celebratory festivals, right? The only two whole holidays listed by Megillas Tainis that are extant even after the Churban are Chanukah and Purim. And if you recall, Purim, we can certainly understand why it still is a celebratory day, because it's mentioned in Tanakh, and Esther is part of Tanakh. Why Chanukah? We saw yesterday, remember, what did we see yesterday by Chanukah? Chanukah because of the public aspect of the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neros. Once it was adopted and embraced by the Jewish people, you can't rescind the practice of a mitzvah that is adopted by all of Klal Yisrael. Right? Okay, let's go weiter. Al Elul mipnei Rosh HaShana ve'al Tishrei mipnei Takanas HaMoados. We go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah told us that there were 6 times where the Sanhedrin that would do Kiddush HaChodesh would send out emissaries to let people know out in the diaspora when Rosh Chodesh was. And they needed to know during these 6 months out of the year in order to know when to establish the holy days that were in that following month. And they say that they sent out delegates to let them know when Rosh Chodesh Elul was, so that they would know when to celebrate Rosh HaShana, because in general Elul is a 29-day month, so if they would know what day Rosh Chodesh Elul was, they would just go 30 days from there and start Rosh HaShana. And Ve'al Tishrei mipnei Takanas HaMoados. And they would do the same thing on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, that after Rosh HaShana, and they were Makadesh the Chodesh al Pi HaRe'iyah, they would send out additional delegates to let people know for sure when Yom Kippur and when Sukkot fell out. So the Gemara's question is, Kevin denafki luhu elul atishrei lamaluhu. If they've already told people when Rosh Chodesh Elul is, and you always know that 29 days, Elul is 29 days, so everyone knows automatically when to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, so then why do you need additional delegates to tell you when Yom Kippur is? If you know when the 1st of Tishrei is, then you'll know when the 10th of Tishrei is. So ve-chatima dilma ibruha le'elul, maybe you'll say that, well, we don't know if for sure Elul is 29 days. Maybe when it comes to this testimony of the witnesses, maybe instead of coming on the 30 days after Rosh Chodesh Elul, will come 31 days after Rosh Chodesh Elul, and it'll turn out that Elul was 30 days. And that's what they need to tell us. But v'ha'amar Rebbe Chinina bar Kahana amarav miyamos Ezra va'elach lo matzino ela mu'ubar. That there was a testimony given that from going back to the times of Ezra, we have never had historically a time when Elul was 30 days. So why should we have to worry about it? So the Gemara says, Lo matzinu de lo itzterich, ha-itzterich ma'abrinan lei. So the Gemara says, all that tells you, all that testimony is that historically, for several hundred years, there was never a need to make Elul 30 days. But if there would be a need to make Elul 30 days, we would. So it's theoretically possible that even though it's been hundreds of years since Elul was 30 days, it could be that it could happen that Elul will be 30 days. In tomorrow's Gemara, we're going to see what reason would the rabbis have for shifting the day of Rosh Hashanah and making Elul 30 days. And we'll see that a lot of it has to do with Yom Kippur, to make sure that Yom Kippur and Shabbos are not back to back, so that Yom Kippur does not fall out on a Sunday or a Friday. So we'll learn about that in Mirz Hashem tomorrow. But for now, let's just, in other words, the point that the Gemara is making is, yes, it's true that historically we never had to make Elul 29 days for several hundred years, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be necessary in the future. But the Gemara says, but wait a minute, if you're telling me that in theory it's possible that Elul will be 30 days instead of 29 days, then Hami Kalkel Rosh Hashanah. Then it's going to turn out that even if people know when Rosh Chodesh Elul was, the people of the diaspora are not going to necessarily know when Rosh Hashanah is. And if not going to know when Rosh Hashanah is, and the Sanhedrin will declare Elul to be 30 days, it'll turn out that everyone's going to celebrate Rosh Hashanah a day earlier than it's supposed to be. And so you're going to mess up Rosh Hashanah for everyone by making Elul 30 days. So the Gemara's answer is, Mutav tikalkel Rosh Hashanah v'lo yiskalkelu kulu moados. Right? So the Gemara says, I grant you that, but better that Rosh Hashanah is messed up than all of the other holy days that would potentially be messed up if we didn't make Elul 30 days. So as I mentioned, we'll see tomorrow what the concerns are, why the rabbis would have to shift the day of Rosh Hashanah, the 1st of Tishrei. But apparently that concern overrides the localized issue of they're not going to get the day of Rosh Hashanah correct. So anyway, Dikanami Dikatani al Tishri Mipnei Takanas Hamoados Shma Mina. You can infer this from the language of the Mishnah, that the concern is that you sent out delegates to let people know when the 1st of Tishrei was, so that they would know when to properly align the Moadim, the holidays. So you see that sometimes the rabbis could make Elul 30 days if it was for the benefit of the other holidays. That's what the language implies. Okay, next. The next thing that the rabbis did is they sent out delegates to let them know when Rosh Chodesh Kislev was, so that people would know when to start Hanukkah. And they sent delegates on Rosh Chodesh Adar Mipnei Apurim to let people know when to celebrate Purim. But the Gemara says, V'ilu nisabra hashana yotzin afal adar sheni mipnei hapurim lo katani. Notice that our Mishnah does not say that in a leap year they would also send out delegates to let people know when the Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni is. It seems like even on a leap year there would only be delegates sent out on Rosh Chodesh Adar and on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but not on Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni. So Masnisan Delo Kerebi. Our Mishnah therefore does not go like Rebbe. The Tanya, Rebbe Omer im nisabra hashana yotzin afal adar hasheni mipnei hapurim. That if there was a leap year, they added an Adar Sheni, since they need to know when to celebrate Adar Sheni, Purim and Adar Sheni, and not an Adar Rishon, they would have to resend delegates to let them know that this was Adar Sheni. So lema b'haka miflagi. Demar savar kol mitzvahs anagos b'sheni nagos b'rishon. Omar savar kol mitzvahs nagos b'sheni ein nagos b'rishon. So let us suggest that the machlokus is as follows. Why does our Mishnah not include that and Rebbe does? The answer is that our Mishnah subscribes to the idea that b'di'evet, if you celebrated Purim in Adar Rishon, you're Yotzei. So let's say I'm living out in Bavel. I don't know whether this year is going to be in one Adar or two Adars. So I'll celebrate Purim in the day when the Sanhedrin tells me that it's the 14th of Adar, with the assumption that it's just a regular Adar this year. Right? So then afterwards the Sanhedrin decides that you're going to insert another Adar. Do I have to re-celebrate Purim or not? According to our Mishnah, you don't have to re-celebrate Purim because you're Yotzei even if you did it in Adar Rishon. But Rebbe says no. Purim may only be celebrated in Adar Sheni and not in Adar Rishon, and that's why he says that in the event that they reinstitute an Adar Sheni, they're going to send out additional delegates to let you know. So the Gemara says, lo, no, that's not the pshat. The Kulei Alma Mitzvah Sanogos B'Sheni Ein Noagos B'Rishon. That really, I'll tell you that everyone holds that you can only celebrate Purim in Adar Sheni. V'hacha b'Iber Shana Kamiflagi. But the machlokus is as far as what the rules are when we add a leap month. Detanya Kama Iber Shana Lamed Yom. Because there's a brisa that tells us that when the Sanhedrin decides that there's going to be a second Adar, then the first Adar is always going to be 30 days. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Chodesh. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says it's always going to be 29 days. So if you hold that you know that there's always going to be a fixed number of days of Adar Rishon, so then you'll automatically know when to celebrate Purim in Adar Sheni. But the Gemara says, Maishna lamed diyadi chodesh namayadi. But if that's the case, then it doesn't matter. Both Tanoim hold that Adar Rishon is always a specific amount of days. It's either 30 days or it's 29 days. If we paskin like the first opinion that it's always 30 days, so then even without delegates, you'll know when to celebrate Purim in Adar Sheni. You just count 14 days after a 30-day Adar Rishon. And if you go like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, so you know it's 29 days, the first Adar, and you'll count 14 days after that. So why do you need the delegates to go out? So Amar Rav Papa, Mando Amar Chodesh Ratza, Chodesh Shloshim. The answer is, says Rav Papa, that if you hold that Adar Rishon is 29 days, that doesn't mean it's always 29 days, it means it can be 29 days, which means it can be 29 and it can be 30. So if you hold like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, which is what Rebbe is holding like, you need to send out delegates for Adar Sheni as well, so that people will know, not only is it a leap month, but also the previous month of Adar was either 29 days or 30 days, so that you'll know when the 14th of Adar Sheni is. Tosfos asks a very basic question. According to our Mishnah, which you don't send out delegates in Adar Sheni, how are people supposed to know that it's Adar Sheni? Maybe it's Nisan. So he says the answer is very simply. If delegates don't show up, then they'll know that it can't be Nisan, because one of the months when we send out delegates is Nisan. So if no one shows up, so then they'll automatically know, oh, it must be because it's Adar Sheni. And since we know that Adar Rishon is always 30 days, we'll automatically know when to celebrate Purim, which will be 14 days after the 30 days.
But you celebrate 2 days Yom Tov if you're in a place where shlichim can't get reach.
Correct.
So they never reach.
This is referring to places where the shluchim can reach.
So what about the places where shluchim can't reach?
That's they have to celebrate 2 days misafek. They'd have to do 2 days misafek, presumably.
That's a lot of celebration.
Yeah. How that affects Yom Kippur, we don't know yet. The Gemara will document that at some point historically, people out in the diaspora did do 2 days of Yom Kippur. I think, did we see that in Yoma or not? I don't remember. I don't remember where that Gemara is, but we'll have to see.
So how did they finally decide whether it was fixed 29 or 30? I mean, in terms of halacha.
Eventually they stopped being Makadesh al Pi Hariyah. They stopped using sightings to sanctify the new month, and the calendar was fixed permanently.
But up until that point,
it's not clear. It's not clear how the halacha was actually practiced.
it was 29 or 30.
Right. Hey, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi mishum kihila kadisha di Yerushalayim al shnei adorim shemekadshim osam biyom ibureihem. So the Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi testifies, going back to the holy congregation in Jerusalem, that the 2 Adars, both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni, that the Rosh Chodesh that comes immediately after each one is always done on the 30th day, which means, Lememra, says the Gemara, Dechasran Avdinan, Malayan Lo Avdinan. That means that both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni, according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, are both always 29 days. In other words, you don't even have the option of making them 30-day months. And La'afuke Middarash Rav Nachman Bar Chisda, that this is coming to exclude that which Rav Nachman Bar Chisda expounded, that Heyed Rabbi Simoy Mishum Chag Zechariah Malachi, that Rabbi Simoy testified in the name of the three prophets, Chag Zechariah Malachi, Al Shnei Adorim, Sheim Ratzu La'asosin, Shnei Maleim Osim, Shnei Chaserin Osin, Echad Moli V'echad Chaser Osim. That it's really up to the discretion of the Sanhedrin. They can make both Adars 30-day months, they can make both Adars 29-day months, or they can make one, or they can make one 30 days and one 29 days. It's up to them. V'kacha Yinoagin Bagola, and that's what they did in the diaspora. Meaning that in the diaspora, when they weren't sure, this is what I think Rashi explains. Where's this Rashi? No, there is no Rashi here. It seems like this was the minhag in the diaspora when they didn't know, they weren't sure, so they would have to conduct themselves both ways. Umishum Rabbeinu Amru, and in the name of Rabbeinu, which is the name of Rav, Amru la'olam echad malei ve'echad chaser ad sheyivada lecha shehukva rosh chodesh bizmano. That in the diaspora you're allowed to assume that the first Adar is 30 days, and the second Adar is 29 days, unless you are told explicitly not that way. In other words, when you're in the Golah, and you don't have the opportunity to discover from emissaries exactly what the story is, you're allowed to assume that the first Adar was 30 days, the second Adar is 29 days, so that if you discover that there's a second Adar, you would know exactly when to celebrate Purim, unless emissaries tell you to the contrary. And then they would tell you that they sanctified it al pi hariyah using sightings in a different day. Shalchu leila mar ukva adar hasamach lenisan laolam chaser. They sent a dispatch to Mar Ukva telling him that the halacha is that the Adar adjacent to Nisan is always 29 days, and that's also consistent with Rav. So Masav Rav Nachman challenges that. Look at the Bryce. It says al shnei chadashim mechalel es haShabbos al Nisan ve'al Tishrei. That there are 2 months where we tell the Eidim who sighted the moon to be Mechalel Shabbos in order to bring their testimony to the Sanhedrin. Those 2 months are Nisan and Tishrei. So if you sighted the moon and you need to be Mechalel Shabbos in order to get to the Sanhedrin by the next day, you have to go past the Tchum, or you have to ride on a horse, or whatever it is, whatever you need to do to get to the Sanhedrin the next day, you need to do, even if Chilul Shabbos is involved. So, the reason is, by the way, as we'll see when the Gemara talks about the calculation of the Jewish calendar, those 2 months are the most important as far as establishing the entire pattern of holidays over the course of the year. Now, Iyamart Bishlam Azinin Mali Zinin Chaser Mishum Hachim Chalalinan. If you tell me that sometimes Adar is 29 days, sometimes it's 30 days, then it makes very good sense why it's necessary for the Eidim to be Mechalel Shabbos, because otherwise the Sanhedrin won't know when the moon was actually sighted. They won't know when to make Rosh Chodesh. But Elai Amart La'olam Chaser Amai Mechalelinan. But if you're going to tell me that Adar is always 29 days, so why did we tell the witnesses to be Mechalel Shabbos? Let's just take the 30th day after Rosh Chodesh Adar and declare it to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan. What's the need for Chilul Shabbos? The Gemara answer is Mishum de mitzvah l'kadesh al pi hariyah. The answer is no. You're right. Adar is always 29 days. However, there's still a mitzvah to be makadesh al pi hariyah. The Torah wants us to sanctify the new moon based on witnesses' testimony and not based on calculating from counting the 29 days from Adar. Ika da Amri, others learn that the discussion went as follows. Amar of Nachman af ana nami tanina al shnei chadashim mechalel nes haShabbos. Rav Nachman says we learned in a brisa that there are 2 months that we desecrate Shabbos in order to bring the witnesses as quickly as possible to the Sanhedrin, al Nisan ve'al Tishrei. So some learn that this is a proof just in the opposite direction. Iyamart bishlam ala olam chaser mishum hachi mechalelin. If you tell me that Adar is 29 days, then I understand this brisa. That's why we tell the Eidim to be Mechalel Shabbos, the mitzvah lakadesh al pi hariyah. Because I understand. In other words, we want, even though we know when Rosh Chodesh is, but we want to do it al pi hariyah, and that's why we tell the Eidim to be Mechalel Shabbos. Elai amar zinin mali zinin chaser amai mechalelinon na'abrei ha'idna v'nakdeshe lamachar. So the Gemara says, but if you're going to tell me that sometimes Adar could be 29 days, and sometimes it's allowed to be 30 days, so why should we tell the witnesses to be Mechalel Shabbos and let us know when Rosh Chodesh is? In other words, let's say the witnesses sight the moon after 29 days. In other words, the night of the 30th day after Rosh Chodesh Adar, and they want to come the next day to say, hey guys, today's not the 30th of Adar, it's the 1st of Nisan. Right? But why do they need to do that? If it's permitted to make Adar 30 days, so let's just tell them, okay, so don't come. And if you don't come, it's nishkaferlach, we'll just make Adar an extra day. In other words, if you're not allowed to make Adar an additional day, you can't make it a 30-day month. So then I understand why we need to, there's an urgency to tell the Edom, okay, so come quickly, make sure you come on the 30th day, so that through your testimony we can declare today to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But if you're allowed to make Adar a 30-day month, so what's so terrible if you don't make it on time to the Beis Din? The worst that'll happen is we'll just make Adar one more day, and tomorrow will be Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Is that so terrible? So the Gemara says, I iklad yom shloshim b'Shabbos hachanami. The Gemara says, you're right. If the 30th day after Rosh Chodesh Adar would turn out to be a Shabbos, you're right. Nishkaferlach, it's not so terrible. But hacha b'mayaskinan dikla yom shloshim ve'echad b'Shabbos, the mitzvah lakadesh al hariyah. The situation that we're dealing with over here is that the witnesses did not see the moon the night of the 30th, because the moon had not yet emerged. What we're talking about, according to this other opinion that sometimes Adar can be 30 days, is that they actually sighted the moon the night of the 31st, meaning that Adar Taka is a 30-day month. And they sighted it the following night, the night of the 31st day after Rosh Chodesh Adar, and we tell them, in this situation, we certainly can be Makadesh the Chodesh without your testimony, but we want you to come to Eretz, to the Sanhedrin, so that we can do it al pi hariyah. And that's why there's a sense of urgency, so that we can fulfill the mitzvah that the Torah advocates, which is use witnesses' testimony to declare it to be Rosh Chodesh. So the bottom line is that there's a big machlokes as to whether Adar can be 29 days or 30 days, but in any event, when the Sanhedrin is Makadesh Chodesh Nisan, they want to do it via Eidim. And the same thing will be Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. And tomorrow, we'll see why it's so important, these two specific months. Have a wonderful day.